In San Diego, young Johnny is engrossed in the superhero world of the utopian and the flair. His mother, however, insists on bedtime, interrupting his TV time.
Oh, no.
As Johnny prepares for bed, he's amazed to find he can turn lights on and off with his mind, a discovery that leads to a surprising blackout. Johnny's new abilities extend to manipulating electricity and toys and streetlights, a thrilling revelation. He shares his secret with his friend Tommy while biking to school, demonstrating his power by changing traffic lights. School presents challenges. When faced with a bully, Dave, Johnny uses his powers for retaliation, causing a speaker to explode. He confides in Tommy about his mysterious powers, leading to a speculation that his unknown father might be a superhero. In the cafeteria, Janice, a classmate, mentions seeing the flare. Dave's interruption prompts Johnny and Tommy to leave, discussing superhero dreams. At an arcade, Johnny, now calling himself Electro Boy, hacks a game, contemplating a bigger future. Johnny questions his mother about his father, receiving no clear answers. With Tommy's help, he redesigns his Electro Boy costume, but struggles to replicate it perfectly. They also experiment with his powers, including a failed attempt at flying. Seeking to demonstrate his abilities, Johnny plans a public display at a pool. The event, however, goes awry. Johnny loses control of his flight, falling into the pool and accidentally electrocuting everyone.
Oh my God!
The aftermath is chaotic, accidents ensue, and a kid is critically injured. Johnny, unable to control his powers, accidentally electrocutes another person. Frustrated and confused, Johnny turns to crime, stealing from an ATM and declaring himself a super crook, much to Tommy's dismay. In Supermax prison, supervillain Johnny is released, feeling optimistic about reuniting with his girlfriend, Casey.
It's beautiful!
He dismisses warnings about the notorious villain Mr. Matz, aka the Bastard, who curiously supports imprisoned villains. Outside, Johnny reunites passionately with Casey, savoring his freedom. At home, they're surprised by Johnny's friends, leading to a warm reunion. Meanwhile, at Supermax, prisoners enjoy a lavish feast courtesy of Mr. Matz, whose ruthless reputation is recounted through a chilling tale of revenge. Casey is frustrated with Johnny and his friends drinking and planning another heist. Despite her concerns, they plot to rob 10 jewelry stores, undeterred by superhero interference. Casey, revealing a power to make them sleep, urges Johnny to consider a legitimate job instead of risky heists. Johnny learns of Casey's persuasive ability, appreciating their private time. Elsewhere, Mr. Matz and the Salamander discuss the Network, a powerful criminal organization. Casey disapproves of Johnny's small-time criminal plans, warning him about the Network's involvement. She urges him to aim higher and wait for a significant opportunity, citing the importance of balance and strategic thinking. Johnny, undeterred, participates in the heist, narrowly escaping capture on their final target. Johnny and his crew, fleeing a jewelry store heist on bikes with blaring sirens and police in pursuit, remain optimistic, unaware of the impending superhero backup. Using his powers, Johnny disables police cars, clearing their path. In a tunnel, Transmit assists them in phasing through a police barricade. Meanwhile, Casey, distracted by Johnny's chase, fumbles service at her restaurant. Johnny suspects Network involvement in the heist but gets no answers from his friends. He's unwilling to return to jail so soon after release. They notice police summoning Man Mountain, slowing them down. Johnny briefly shocks Man Mountain, and a coordinated effort immobilizes him with bad luck, planes, and chemicals. Facing Rubberball, a new superhero who poses for fan photos, they attack unsuccessfully due to his incredible speed. Rubberball's actions harm civilians, but he remains confident. Johnny finally slows him with a shock, and they defeat Rubberball with a combined ice attack. Despite some bad luck, Rubberball appears invulnerable but causes more casualties. The villains unite their powers, making it impossible for Rubberball to evade their combined assault. They defeat him and Johnny electrocutes him, crippling his legs. Reflecting on their victory, Johnny confides in Frostbite about his desire for this life and credits their success to luck. He expresses gratitude to his companions as they cross the Golden State Bridge. Their celebration is cut short when they are teleported and face the Praetorian, who informs them it's time to seize the day. The Super Crooks stand in shock as Praetorian, wearing a confident smile, confronts them. The Union of Justice broadcasts the entire scene, emphasizing Praetorian's formidable power. With a chilling tone, Praetorian informs the villains that they should prepare for their demise. The villains scatter in fear, but Praetorian utilizes his Spark Division ability to chase them down relentlessly. Approaching Frostbite, Praetorian endures an ice blast without much trouble. He retaliates with fiery breath that engulfs Frostbite entirely. Then he sends Frostbite soaring into the air and crashes him back to the ground, rendering him motionless. Unmoved by Frostbite's pleas for negotiation, Praetorian proceeds to step on his head and ruthlessly kicks him until he succumbs. Moving towards Kismet, Praetorian faces the Crook's attempts to jinx him with bad luck. However, Praetorian deflects the misfortune and watches as fish, including a massive shark, rain down upon Kismet. Praetorian crushes the shark and declares Kismet crushed to death. Transmit and Johnny desperately attempt to escape, but Praetorian swiftly catches up with them. He kicks Transmit, sending him soaring into the air, and then relentlessly batters him against a car until Transmit breathes his last. Turning to Johnny, Praetorian delivers a powerful punch to his face. Johnny tries to fight back by electrocuting the ground, but Praetorian merely chuckles. Johnny declares his unwillingness to return to prison and attempts to flee, only to find his friends defeated by the other Praetorians, leaving him outnumbered. Johnny complains that 4 against 1 is cowardly, prompting Praetorian to agree to a one-on-one fight. Johnny asks him what he wants, and Praetorian inquires how long it has been since Johnny's release from Supermax. Praetorian embraces Johnny with one arm until Johnny admits he was released the day before. Praetorian expresses pity and understands that it wouldn't be fair to send him back to prison. He emphasizes that he cares more about the sin than the sinner, and acknowledges that Johnny has someone who cares for him. Praetorian advises Johnny not to engage in actions that would make her sad and cautions him and his gang that they won't have another chance like this. The jewelry, now totaling $8,000 per person, serves as a stark reminder of the consequences they narrowly avoided. A woman at the beach, TK McCabe, serves her a drink and swipes one of her keys. A man spots TK using the stolen keys for car theft and informs Carmen, who sends the gladiator to apprehend TK. Inside a lively establishment, the Diesel brothers engage in heated betting that escalates into a brawl before they recall Carmen's advice not to fight without profit. A call from Carmen interrupts their dispute. Casey and Carmen reunite, with Carmen expressing joy at her presence but declining to visit San Francisco. Johnny introduces himself as Carmen explains his ability to blend in seamlessly. An altercation ensues when Johnny tries to touch a laundry machine, causing Carmen to caution him. Casey clarifies that she never disclosed Johnny's powers to Carmen, revealing that Johnny adopted the alias The Heat. Carmen shares Chicago's history as a breeding ground for supervillains, mentioning that the Heat once dissociated from the Mafia and united similar villains. Johnny discovers Carmen's powerful blasters and learns that Carmen has no superpowers, emphasizing the importance of making money over ego. In Carmen's office, he welcomes Casey and Johnny to Chicago's underworld, discussing the challenges posed by superpowered individuals and organizations like the Union of Justice. Tensions flare briefly as the Ghost taunts Johnny, who demonstrates his power by causing citywide blackouts. The Ghost recounts his history, mentioning his exploitation due to his abilities until Carmen rescued him. Carmen thanks Johnny for his demonstration, believing it holds potential. Carmen discloses the mission's first phase, rescuing TK McCabe, apprehended by the Gladiator in Florida, emphasizing TK's importance in securing funding from a Romanian supplier. Carmen announces their funding, thanks to his Romanian partner, instructing them to head to Florida. He promises to reveal the rest of the plan upon their return, hinting at its significance for their legacy. Johnny's inquiry sparks Carmen's frustration, cut short by a passing train. On a Supermax plane, TK McCabe endures taunts and torment from security personnel. Suddenly, the Gladiator intervenes, surprising the guards with his presence and their remark on TK's unfortunate luck. Carmen and Johnny, along with their team, prepare to depart on a mission. Witnessing a gruesome accident at the plane rental office, they opt for a larger plane. Ghost and the Diesel brothers join them. In the cockpit, Carmen reassures Johnny, advising him not to compare his powers to others and to find his unique style. Casey tracks TK's plane from a small boat as she reads. Roddy engages in a brawl with the Gladiator to create a distraction. Meanwhile, Carmen senses a power surge as they fly above the Supermax plane. Johnny deems it impossible to deactivate TK's restraint device, so they initiate Plan B. As the Supermax plane attempts to communicate, Johnny disrupts their comms. Ghost and the Diesel brothers launch onto the Supermax plane, catching the Gladiator's attention. The Gladiator battles one of the Diesel brothers, resulting in injury. Ghost descends to the Supermax plane to confront the guards. Pilots rush to reach Supermax, prompting Carmen to ask Johnny to slow them down. Johnny complies, showcasing his style. Roddy battles the Gladiator, who lectures him about living an easy life due to his powers. The Gladiator incapacitates Roddy and cruelly removes his arm before they crash into the ocean. Underwater, the Gladiator is approached by mermen and reluctantly agrees to help save an underwater kingdom. Roddy reunites with his brother on Casey's boat, and Casey assures Carmen that everything is fine. Johnny takes charge, turning off the Supermax plane, causing it to plummet. Carmen and Johnny chase after it as they prepare for the next phase of their mission. As the Supermax plane hurtles toward the ground, Johnny conveys his helplessness to Ghost, who understands his intent. Ghost compels the guards to cooperate, warning them that they will all perish unless they follow his lead. Reluctantly, the guards comply and TK employs his telekinesis to prevent the plane from crashing. Celebrations ensue and TK forcibly removes the guards from the plane. With TK successfully rescued, the group regroups to depart. Carmen extends his congratulations to Johnny, Casey, Ghost, TK, and the Diesel brothers for a job well done. He reveals the need for one more member for the upcoming phase of their mission and presents their next challenge, stealing the helmet of Count Orlok from the Union of Justice's headquarters. This audacious heist, orchestrated independently by Count Orlok himself, diverges from the powerful supervillain organization, the Network, led by the formidable psychic Christopher, the Bastard Matz. Initially hesitant, all members eventually agree to partake in this perilous mission. Carmen gathers Johnny, Casey, Ghost, TK, and the Diesel brothers and outlines their next step, stealing Count Orlok's legendary helmet, capable of amplifying his powers. Ghost voices his commitment to the mission but refuses to touch the helmet. Casey demands to know how they plan to counter the powerful superheroes, and Carmen reassures them that he has considered every detail. Forecast joins the group, confirming his commitment to the mission, exciting everyone. Carmen shares the plan with Casey, and Johnny and Ghost express their determination, even though attacking the Union of Justice is a daring endeavor. Carmen points out that if they move swiftly, they won't need to rely on the Network for funding. Johnny attempts to persuade Casey to join, and she inquires about the missing member. Carmen contacts Forecast, who promptly confirms his participation. Casey reluctantly agrees after learning Forecast has the power to control the weather. Meanwhile, at Supermax, the Bastard announces his retirement during a party. He recounts his dark past and murderous actions, disclosing his intention to leave the Network in capable hands. As he departs, he tests the loyalty of his subordinates by executing those who stopped clapping first. Outside Supermax, a guard's head mysteriously explodes, leaving a colleague shocked. In the past, Casey demonstrates her ability to incapacitate a drug dealer by inflicting severe headaches, revealing her unique power. However, after completing this task, her group informs her that this is her final job for them. Carmen becomes intrigued when he meets Casey, recognizing her potential to work with him. Casey's attempt to partner with a man fails as he is aware of her reputation. Carmen advises her to embrace her power and seek companions who understand her uniqueness. Carmen later approaches Casey and offers her a job, recognizing her extraordinary abilities. At the Plaza Hotel, Johnny and Casey check in as a pretend married couple. Their initial excitement diminishes when they realize their reservations only indicate a pretend marriage. Despite this, they celebrate with a beer and pledge to leave their criminal past behind to avoid ending up in Supermax. Carmen calls the group to ensure they are prepared for the upcoming mission. Johnny and Casey receive a phone call from him while preparing to have sex, but hang up on him.
Sorry, buddy.
Ghost, struggling to sleep, examines his suit and picks up a book for distraction. The Diesel brothers secretly navigate their way to the elevator. Forecast and TK rest on a train. TK awakens and impresses a young girl by making her doll fly. They arrive in Pittsburgh, seeking their hotel. Outside the Union of Justice, Johnny and the Diesel brothers, Carmen, Ghost, and Casey operate a hot dog truck. The group discusses their upcoming mission while Sammy and Roddy argue about helping each other. Ghost asks Casey to provide pleasant illusions if danger approaches. At the Union of Justice headquarters, superheroes gather for a meeting, with the Utopian, Paragon, Ruby Red, and Praetorian among them. Carmen checks his watch, signaling the start of their operation. In Pittsburgh, the Necromancer raises zombies to distract the Union of Justice. Johnny, Carmen, Ghost, the Diesel brothers, and Casey search for Count Orlok's helmet. Johnny and Casey recall a previous heist gone wrong and find what appears to be the magic helmet. Praetorian, feeling unwell, hears Carmen's voice through his power, advising the group to leave before the Utopian realizes the zombie threat is a ruse. Praetorian confronts the villains on floor G, where Count Orlok's helmet appears to float. He destroys it, revealing it to be a replica and the real items concealed underground. Knocking Casey out, Praetorian exposes all the villains and recognizes Johnny, sensing a familiar connection. The Union members arrive at the horde of zombies and fight them back. TK and Forecast attempt to prolong the encounter but are forced to flee when Gladiator arrives to evacuate the citizens. At the Union of Justice, the Praetorian reveals that the helmet in their possession is a replica and the actual helmet is stored in the Union's underground vault. During the fight, Praetorian murders multiple bystanders with his powers and is only stopped when Ghost travels down to the lower levels and retrieves the authentic helmet, which he uses to teleport the crew to Carmen's safe house at Black Rock. Carmen reveals that years ago he, Count Orlok, and Matz attempted to form a rival organization to the Union for supervillains. It falls apart due to Max's resentment of Orlok. Mats then forms the network so he can run the villain world without having to deal with anyone countering his authority as Orlok did. The group celebrates their success and awaits Orlok's arrival, but Praetorian instead arrives with Mats, revealing that he is a double agent for the network inside the Union. The Praetorian then freezes the crew in place as Mats collects their money. Orlok then arrives to congratulate the group but is immediately killed by Mats, with Mats and Praetorian taking Orlok's helmet and the money promised to the group, leaving the crew bloodied and defeated. Depressed and resentful at their failure, the crew goes their separate ways, with Johnny and Casey returning home. When Casey suffers a breakdown due to her anger at the network and sorrow at their failure, Johnny impulsively proposes to her. The two plan their wedding, though Johnny realizes he is not ready to leave behind a life of crime. On his stag night, he is teleported and reunited with his old group of friends who convince him to pull one last job with them before he leaves crime forever. Johnny drunkenly agrees, and on the morning of the wedding, the group robs a chain of jewelers again. A Praetorian sabotages their getaway, and the group is forced to flee on the subway, where Johnny is caught by Gladiator and the police. At the church, Casey realizes what has happened and burns her wedding dress, leaving the venue and her relationship with Johnny behind. Johnny is once again locked in Supermax, where he pleads with the guards for a chance to call Casey, to no avail. 5 years later, a reformed Johnny leaves prison, intent on repairing his relationship with Casey and abandoning crime for good. Meanwhile, a now disgraced Praetorian has come under controversy for the collateral damage caused during the fight at the Union of Justice. Despite being acquitted of the crimes by his lawyer, he has lost his place at the Union of Justice. Johnny finds Casey working a dead-end job at a coffee shop, with Casey rebuffing Johnny, refusing to talk to him until a beaten and weary Carmen arrives. For the previous 5 years, Carmen had been running card-counting scams at various casinos until being caught by the new head of the network, the Salamander, Mats' second-in-command, whom he left in charge of the network after his retirement. Now in debt to the network for $100 million, Carmen begs Johnny and Casey for help. Casey attempts to acquire a fake passport for Carmen so that he can flee the country with a new identity, while Johnny and Carmen reassemble their old crewmates for one final heist, robbing Matt's private island in Japan and making off with his entire fortune of untold millions stored inside a four-dimensional briefcase. They are joined by a reluctant Casey after having an epiphany about her notoriety. Before the mission can begin, Johnny recruits one last member, Gladiator, who is secretly having affairs with other men behind his husband's back. Johnny threatens to leak the story to the world, as well as offering Gladiator a chance to get revenge on Praetorian, whose lengthy trial and controversy harmed Gladiator's public image by association, also revealing that he is now working for Mats. Enraged by Praetorian's betrayal, Gladiator begrudgingly agrees, and the crew travels to Matt's private island to begin the heist. The group begins reconnaissance with Casey and Roddy infiltrating Matt's house disguised as scientists. Casey uses her powers to perform a psychic scan of the entire facility and the underground maze leading to the briefcase. After successfully mapping a path, Casey announces her intentions to return to America now that her role is played. That night on the beach, Johnny reconciles with her and convinces her of his new perspective, swearing that this will be their last ever job. The group begins the heist the next morning, though Casey has left for the airport. Unable to use their powers at first due to the alarms and superpower repression devices within the facility. After successfully rebooting the island's servers, the group begins to make their way through the network of traps to the briefcase. Casey begins to have second thoughts about abandoning the group, but before she can make a decision, she is captured by Mats and the Praetorian. Johnny and the crew successfully survive the network of traps and guards protecting the briefcase, which Carmen retrieves using his flamethrowers. As they make their escape, Mats reboots the security system and reveals that he has tied up Casey in his office before sending Praetorian down to stop the crew. Praetorian once again defeats the group with ease, but is surprised by Gladiator's presence, who is one of the few heroes stronger than himself. Gladiator overpowers Praetorian and severely beats him for his massacre of innocents and desecration of the Union's reputation, leaving him alive but brain damaged. The group then makes their escape while Mats engages in a psychic duel with the tied-up Casey, eventually winning and killing her. However, he is shocked to find that the whole experience was one of Casey's illusions, as she had been fooling him since the airport. The crew escapes the island with the briefcase, and after they each collect their share of the money, they go their separate ways. Carmen returns to gambling, TK takes his family on a holiday with a private yacht, Roddy and Forecast invest their shares into personal scientific endeavors, Sammy becomes a playboy and spends his money on drugs and prostitutes, and Coast uses his share to become a wealthy real estate agent in his native Greece, using his money to buy a portion of the land. Gladiator confesses to his affairs and reconciles with his husband. His reputation and popularity surge. Meanwhile, Mats returns to the US and executes Salamander for betraying him, and he decides to return to the network. By wearing the costumes used by Salamander and his associates, Johnny's group framed him, with Mats inadvertently wiping Carmen's debt and enabling him to keep his entire share. Johnny and Casey happily retire from crime and agree to remarry and restart their relationship.